I'm thinking of having her to marry my son. You can't have children, can you? That's why I was against the marriage, to marry to an older woman like you." My mother-in-law spoke these words with a smile, a younger woman sitting beside her. The most important person, my husband, just sat silently next to this young woman. I'm so fed up with his in-laws family. I had left in a huff, but to my surprise, I regretted it immediately and sought to reconcile. Regret fills me as I ponder on the disastrous choice I made marrying into such a family. My name is Olivia, and I am 38 years old. I met my husband, Sam, who is 8 years younger than me, through a friend's introduction. I hesitated to date him because of the age difference, but he passionately declared, "Age doesn't matter. I love the person named Olivia." And we began dating, which eventually led to marriage. About 6 months into our relationship, considering my age and the possibility of marriage, he decided to introduce me to his parents. His mother opposed our marriage because of the age gap. "I thought you'd bring a young, cute bride when you said you were introducing a woman you're considering marrying. Oh dear, 38 years old. Sam, I mean no disrespect, but reconsider. Younger women are better," she said to Sam in front of me. My father-in-law stepped in and said, "If Sam thinks it's good, then it's good, isn't it? Sorry about my wife's rude comments, Olivia." And we managed to obtain approval for our marriage. My father-in-law was a man who would diffuse the harsh words of my mother-in-law, giving the impression of a non-confrontational person. However, once we got married, he often turned a blind eye, which was disappointing. Sam's family was a well-known line of landowners in our small town, and my mother-in-law boasted about it endlessly. Even though, technically speaking, she was not a blood relative of the family, she had married into it just like me. This is an affluent family, and Sam, being the golden boy, has a dreamy, otherworldly charm. The man I was with before Sam was very frugal, which was a struggle, so Sam's generous and easygoing attitude toward money is quite appealing. Although my mother-in-law grudgingly accepted our marriage after being told off by my father-in-law, she doesn't seem to bless it with pleasure. She continually shares her views on how a good wife should behave, which is exasperating. She has a strong presence among the local women and takes pride in being the representative of the Women's Association and being adored by everyone. She insisted I take time off on a weekday to introduce me to the association members. According to her, it's crucial to make a good impression on these people. She introduced me with a sense of satisfaction, but a few of them commented, "You're going to have a hard time too," implying that she wasn't as well liked as she claimed to be. Oh yes, I was also told to get a bridal checkup to confirm my ability to conceive. I can't deny that I was somewhat repulsed by the fact that it was my mother-in-law, not Sam, who ordered this, but honestly, I was also curious about whether I could become pregnant, so I agreed. Gynecological exams, they're not a pleasant experience. Despite being services for women, I wish there was a way to have them without discomfort. Is it just me who finds the waiting time for the examination while seated on that chair incredibly torturous? Overcoming such pain, the results of my bridal health check were good. I felt relieved at the doctor's words, "You're fine." Sam seemed to be worried deep down, and he looked relieved when I told him the results. Of course, I told my mother-in-law about the medical results. I thought that we could now celebrate our marriage happily, but then she said, "Good, you've passed the first hurdle." The first hurdle? What does that mean? I thought she would be happier. Could it be that she was hoping for a bad result? As I wondered how to respond, my mother-in-law made an unexpected proposal. "Once you get married, let's build a duplex and live together. You'll be responsible for half the down payment and mortgage. You work in administration, right? Your salary is probably low, but you should be able to handle that if you've been working until this age." A duplex? Living together? The down payment and mortgage on me? I was confused by this sudden barrage. I glanced at my husband sitting next to me, but he didn't seem to say anything. Come on, help me out. About living together, I haven't heard anything from Sam. Putting aside the fact that she had slighted my job, I had asked about the duplex and living together first. You haven't heard? Oh, Sam must have thought it was too obvious to say such thing. That's not good. We've always said that when Sam gets married, we'll build a house here and live together. I was chilled. Always? Is she saying that she brainwashed Sam by repeating it over and over? That's right. That's what I had in mind. What? I didn't hear about this. Why are you admitting it so easily? I'm sorry, but I wasn't aware of this matter, and I can't decide without discussing it with Sam, so could you hold off on it for now? Saying that, I left my in-laws' house. Later, when I confirmed with Sam, he said that after marriage, he was planning to build a duplex on his parents' property and live with them. I was angry that I hadn't been told, but he said, "Sorry, I forgot to tell you." I now think I should have decided not to get married at this point. Sam is kind and handsome, and I thought that given my age, I wouldn't be able to meet someone nice if I let him go, and I went down the wrong path. Now, I would surely be furious that he brushed off the matter of living with his parents as, "I forgot to tell you." But at the time, I was charmed by Sam saying, "I'm sorry." I must have been lured by the bait of marriage and had my head in the clouds. As a result, I ended up building a duplex as my mother-in-law wished, and I started married life by bearing half of the down payment and mortgage. Half a year after our marriage, I got pregnant. Just in case, I kept it a secret from my in-laws until I reached a stable period. I thought there might be a chance that something could go wrong. Once I was stable, I reported to my in-laws. Of course, they were overjoyed and were already discussing what to name the baby. They naturally expected it to be a boy, but we still didn't know the sex, so we can't say for sure. There is pressure, but it's nice to be able to make them happy. Taking precautions, I was suggested to quit my job, but since I'm helping out with my family's business, I have a somewhat flexible position. I decided to continue as long as I'm not overdoing it. My pregnancy was going smoothly, and I started to feel the long-awaited movements of the baby. The sensation of a tiny life stirring inside me is somewhat mysterious, yet filled with happiness. I am filled with gratitude for the joy of being born a woman and experiencing this joy. My husband Sam and my in-laws look forward to the baby's growth every time I go for a checkup, and I am eagerly waiting for a child's birth. I have a feeling that my relationship with my mother-in-law will significantly improve once this child is born. One day, when I felt like every day was sparkling, I noticed that the baby's movements were getting weaker. I was consumed with a sense of indescribable anxiety and rushed to the hospital. The doctors told me something was wrong with the baby. Why? How? I was living my life as usual. What did I do wrong? Fear overcame me. Because of the risks, I was hospitalized right away. Despite the doctor's efforts, my child embarked on a journey to heaven. Just a few more months and I could have met my child. Why did it happen so suddenly? It was just yesterday when the baby was moving energetically inside me. Was it my fault? As I cried in sorrow, the words from my supportive husband hit me hard. "How long are you going to cry? It's over, isn't it? Crying won't bring the baby back. Stop crying." I was stunned. What was he saying? Our child has just passed away. Despite being surprised by this cold side of Sam I had never seen before, my shattered mental state left me no choice but to remain silent. Then came the day of my discharge from the hospital. Sam didn't come to pick me up. I mustered a smile and assured the nurses who were worried about me going home alone that I would be okay. When I arrived home by taxi, I was greeted by Sam, my mother-in-law, and an unfamiliar woman. "Welcome back. It's a shame, isn't it?" said my mother-in-law with a strange smile. "Yes?" I responded and took a seat on the living room couch as suggested. The seating arrangement was odd, with my mother-in-law and the woman sitting across from me on a bench, and Sam sitting next to them, not making any attempt to comfort me or make eye contact. Then my mother-in-law spoke. "We've discussed this with Sam, but you can't have children anymore, can you? We don't need a daughter-in-law who can't produce an heir, so we thought we'd have this girl marry Sam." Being confronted with such words when I'm still recovering from the shock of the miscarriage? Tears welled up in my eyes. But I had to stay strong, reminding myself that crying would be admitting defeat. I kept my head down, unable to lift my face. In the face of my despair, my mother-in-law continued mercilessly. "Well, if you are saying that you're willing to earn a living for our family instead of having children, we might consider keeping you. What will you do? Will I be able to support their living if they leave me behind? What on earth are they talking about?" Without thinking, I raised my face to look at my husband. As our eyes met, Sam quickly averts his gaze. Next to him, a woman who seems triumphant is staring at me. I remembered her as Sam's childhood friend. She was introduced to me at our wedding. Seeing that my husband wouldn't even meet my eyes, I thought to myself, he's not on my side, he's not going to help me. A cold breeze swept over me from the top of my head, and strangely my mind became incredibly sharp. During my hospitalization, they must have had their discussions. They are planning to oust me, the woman who can't bear a child, and bring a younger wife into this house to bear an heir. If I stay here any longer, I will only get hurt. There's absolutely nothing good for me here. I finally understood clearly, so I said, "I understand your stance, Sam. Let's divorce. Please live happily with your new wife." And so I left the house. Returning to my family home, my parents, surprised but warm, welcomed me. They were aware of my miscarriage, so they were outraged by the cruelty I had to face so soon after my discharge from the hospital. It was a relief to see a warm reaction after such a long time, and I ended up crying a lot. That day, I fell asleep from crying, but the next day, my mother-in-law and husband, who had chased me out with such cruelty the day before, showed up at my family home. At first, my mother responded normally, but when she realized who they were, she refused to deal with them. Then they began incessantly ringing the doorbell, shouting, "We revoked the divorce! Come back now!" Actually, my family runs a barbecue restaurant. It is a renowned shop that handles a globally famous brand of beer. Many celebrities and athletes come to eat at this tasty place. However, my husband's family is an old, respectable family. They had a negative image of my family, thinking, their family runs a barbecue restaurant. They had this old-fashioned belief that running a restaurant was a shady business and thought our family background was poor. We had invited them to dine once before the marriage, but they declined, saying, "Beef? We've always ate at a designated place. Meat from other restaurants gives me heartburn. Sorry." At the pre-wedding meeting, they indirectly belittled my family with remarks like, "Oh, you run a restaurant, don't you? Oh, from your parents' generation. Oh, I see. Beef, huh? Respectable families don't engage in such business." I felt bad for my parents who raised me. My parents dismissed it with a laugh, saying, "There are people with such mindsets." On the day I left after the divorce, my husband and mother-in-law happened to see our restaurant being featured on TV. They had no interest until then and considered my family lower than them. They had panicked and came to call me back after seeing our restaurant being described as operating its own farm that produces brand beef, having extreme popularity with meat being exported all around the world, being extremely successful and making a lot of money. I felt nauseous when they immediately tried to cozy up to me, saying, "If you were rich, we wouldn't have talked about divorce. I'm sorry for yesterday. We weren't thinking right. Please come back." After all that talk about children and heirs, was it all about money in the end? My husband, Sam, and his family didn't inquire about my job in detail, so I had told them I worked in office administration for my family's company, leading them to believe I was a low-paid, incompetent employee. Consequently, they probably thought that if they asked me to shoulder the down payment and mortgage for the house, I'd give up on the marriage. In reality, I am in charge of the meat export division at my parents' company, earning a substantial income for an office worker. Luckily, I had accumulated a good amount of savings due to getting married later in life, enabling me to prepare the money they asked for. I am also a major shareholder in the company, and I hope to eventually take over my father's position to further grow the company. They had never shown even the slightest interest or asked me about this until it was highlighted on TV, changing their treatment of me overnight. They incessantly talked about wanting kids, but it turns out money was their primary concern. I am simply appalled by their shallowness. My father, who had been silently observing the situation, finally lost his temper and kicked Sam and his parents out. "Thank you, Dad, you saved me," I said. My father, still seething with anger, started drinking and cursing at them. He had me explain everything from before the marriage without holding back any details. Believing I wouldn't be able to handle this alone, my father promptly contacted a lawyer he knew, leading to a demand for damages. Since I was unjustly evicted, we also asked for a reimbursement for the housing funds I had provided during our cohabitation. The claim was acknowledged, and it was decided that I would receive a refund for the expenses I covered. However, Sam alone couldn't repay the loan I'd taken on, so his family home had to be sold. Because they had built a luxurious house on a rural property just for show, even after selling it, there was a considerable mortgage left that Sam and his parents would have to pay. Moreover, it was a house filled with the eccentricities of Sam's mother, so finding a buyer willing to accept it as is seemed doubtful, implying that disposal could take time. Fortunately, they managed to sell some land they owned separately, allowing me to get my money back first, which was a relief. At this point, I was glad I married into a landlord's family. Sam and his parents were forced to leave their beloved two-family home and now seem to be scraping by in a rented apartment, struggling to repay their loan. Oh, and about the woman who was planning to remarry Sam, who was a childhood friend, she was only interested because she thought she'd live in a large house and that his family was wealthy. As soon as she found out that they were going to lose the house and still be in debt, she disappeared. I believe it was the right decision for her to run away, because if she had married him, she might have been forced to have a child, and perhaps even made to work because of her young age. This area is still quite rural, so word spreads fast. For better or worse, gossip is quick to circulate, especially when it involves a well-known family like Sam's. People seem to be buzzing with interest, making comments like, "They treated the wife terribly and drove her out. They used to show off their big house, but now they're in debt and living in an apartment. Having been abandoned by both the wife and potential new wife, their family line will probably end with this generation." It's amazing to see how accurate the rumors are, and to wonder where and who saw all this. The power of a rural network is truly something to be reckoned with. So, it seems like my bossy mother-in-law, who used to strut around like she owned the place, is now sneaking around even to do her shopping, concerned about other people's gazes. My parents told me, "We told you not to marry into a family that would insist on testing whether you could get pregnant before marriage, didn't we?" and shrugged off the whole situation. They even consoled me in a strange way, saying, "Oh, Olivia just rushed into marriage a bit. Don't worry about it. It's fine if you stay home all the time." They try to be considerate in their own way. We had our share of troubles, being kicked out, going to court, but I can tell that they are happy to be able to live with their daughter again. I am grateful for my parents' warmth. It seemed as if I was just dreaming or seeing a nightmare about my married life that I'm living freely now. I might have a divorce under my belt, but I'm still in my 30s. I haven't given up on marriage. Once things settle down, I plan to work hard to find a new partner. But, well, until I find the next right person, maybe I should spend a lot of time doing good things for my parents.